In the past few days, political tensions have been high, and while I usually avoid politics, some of these recent events have made me take notice. I usually observe people in this world clashing over different issues like politics or lifestyle choices or even sports teams. And these conflicts, they highlight the duality of the ego's world as it projects this world of opposition and separation. But is there another way to approach these conflicts? When you observe from a distance, you can see this duality of seeming opposites: Republican, Democrat, vegan, carnivore, light versus dark, men versus women, good versus evil. There's so many dualities. This whole world is made up of that. And the ego, which is the belief in the mind of separation from God, it projects this false world of duality. And these dualities are constantly fighting on a battlefield. And then you have to wonder, when does this battle ever end? This battle of duality has been going on since the beginning of time. That is, since the beginning of the ego in your own mind. Remember, this world is just a mirror reflection of your own mind. Any battles or wars that you see out there are actually projections of your own unconscious mind. You might notice that when you pick one side of the battle, your mind automatically makes the other side into an enemy. And you start acting in the way that the ego tells you to, which is basically villainizing the other side and using violence oftentimes to bring the other side down. So what's the solution here? Do you pick one side and fight with increasing violence to make sure the other side is defeated? Or is there another way? This world has been fighting wars since the beginning of time, justifying wars to bring peace. That's the ego's way of thinking, that waging war will bring peace. And this is insanity, but this is how the ego thinks. This is the ego thought system. And as long as you're operating within that ego thought system, you're caught in the crystal ball of duality, which is the nightmare that we find ourselves in. A person who picks one side oftentimes becomes possessed by the ego and the collective energy of duality and separation. And then they start fighting the other side. And the more they're identified with that position, the more violent it becomes. They no longer know what they're doing. They've lost awareness, they've lost consciousness. In this video, we're talking about a higher way to approach this issue of duality. Albert Einstein once said, "You cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it." This is a great clue. Our mind has a lower nature, which is the false self or the ego, and it has a higher nature, which you could call the higher self or the true self or God. The lower nature is ignorant and hateful and xenophobic and miserable, and it holds grievances, while our higher nature is forgiving and peaceful and loving and happy. And the two minds, they actually have no overlap. They're two completely different ways of looking at the world. When we think about a problem from our lower nature, there seems to be no other solution other than to fight the problem, fight the other side with more and more violence. It also uses a lot of logic and intellectual explanations. But when we think from our higher nature, we enter the realm of miracles and mystery and divine laws, which is beyond the intellect. And that's where the real solution comes from. And that's what Albert Einstein was talking about. That you don't solve the problem from the same state of mind that created the problem. The ego created the problem, so you can't solve the problem from the ego state of mind. You have to go higher. The realm of miracles is where the solution comes from. And the solution from the higher self always involves forgiveness. So how do you access this part of your mind? And how do you forgive? First, you have to get quiet and still. Close your eyes and ask your higher self to see the situation through its eyes of forgiveness and peace. You have to be genuine about this. You have to truly want to see your opponent differently. Your higher nature sees the world completely different from your ego. While your ego might be screaming, "Do you know what they've done? It's unforgivable." But your higher mind knows only unconditional love and forgiveness. At that level, there has never been anything wrong. There has never been any sin or mistakes. And we have to look from that higher mind to see forgiveness through our eyes. So when you ask your higher mind to help you see through its eyes of forgiveness, you will witness a miracle from that divine space, and it will guide you towards a solution. As Alan Watts would say, you are the universe experiencing itself. So let the universe think for you and give you its solutions. So from this place of sincere asking, your higher mind will show you a higher perspective. You may notice that the grievances start to loosen and that energy of hatred is released. And as you do this, you're actually releasing your end of the tug of war, and then the whole fight collapses. How can there be war or a battlefield when there are no enemies? This is what it means to love your enemies. When you ask your higher mind to forgive those people who are possessed by the ego, possessed by hatred and violence, when you forgive those who know not what they do, you will see a miracle, and that is the solution. Trust in your higher mind to resolve everything. Its ways are much higher than our ego's ways. No matter how much your ego screams for revenge, give it all up to your higher self and ask for help. Because after eons of fighting wars in this world, we know that this battlefield of duality isn't working, and it has never worked. It's a trick to keep us stuck, divided, and fighting. Don't be deceived by the ego. The ego wants to keep that duality going through conflict. Give up your own ego possession to see the higher truth. A forgiven world by God, where there is no evil. Now, this doesn't mean that you should sit on the couch and do nothing for the rest of your life, or that you can't pick sides either. Just be very conscious when you do so. Your higher mind might guide you to take some sort of action, but it will come from a place of peace and forgiveness, not anger and revenge. You're free of all grievances. This is what we call right action. Remember, this world is just a mirror reflection of your own mind. Any battles or wars you see out there are projections of your inner world. When we seek a new perception from our higher self, that shift in perception will change how you see the world. And this higher self will reveal to us a brighter and more positive view of the world and how we belong in it. I hope this video has helped you. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more messages from the higher mind. Together we can create a world of unity and love.